Did you know Super Awesome Mix has an app? Go to the Apple App Store today and download Super Awesome Mix. It's free. You could start creating and sending your own digital mixtapes in just a few clicks. Also, there's links to our Instagram account and a link where you can follow your favorite podcast. Speaking of which, welcome back to another Super Awesome Mix. My name is Matt Sidholm, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Super Awesome Mix, Samer Abu Salbi. Samer, how are we doing this week?
I am doing well. I want to give the listeners a little bit of history or context on this recording that we're doing. So it's songs from movies or movies that, like kind of made a song very popular. And I got really excited about doing this because I thought, well, this is going to be great because not only can we talk about music, but we can also talk about movies. But then I've learned that you and I have very different movie tastes because I haven't seen a single movie that you featured a song from.
That is
So
interesting.
it might have been a bad idea. I am full of regret.
Well, because I think I'd heard of at least all of the movies you put forth. I realized I
Right.
hadn't seen all of them, but yeah, there weren't any mysteries. But yeah, probably the way we diverge a little bit on music preferences, probably the same would be true of movies. That shouldn't be too
Right.
shocking, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I should have known better. Oh well, here we are.
But
But
here we
yes,
are. Yeah, it's summertime, the blockbuster movie time. There's so many big movies coming out now, so we thought we'd kind of celebrate that by celebrating some great music that either was written exclusively for, or like you said, made popular by a certain movie.
yeah, and there were a lot to pick from, so this is a good volume 1 mix for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of volumes of this one for sure. So this isn't necessarily a top 12 because there's probably 1,000 others.
Absolutely. All right, well with that, let's get rolling. Song number 1 is your pick, and it is Old Habits Die Hard by Mick Jagger and Dave Stewart.
Okay, so I haven't even seen this movie. Okay, so maybe I should get that out of the way first. It's from the movie Alfie. Okay, now the original Alfie was played by Michael Caine and was like 50 years ago. And then they remade it about 15 years ago with Jude Law. And that's where this song came into play. So this song was written for the remake of Alfie with Jude Law. I just think this is a great song. Like, it just came on the radio once and it got like just a smidgen of airplay, enough for me to run across it. And I was like, man, I really like this song. And then realized it was from the movie. So the movie is about this guy, Alfie, who is, some sort of, lifetime bachelor, and sort of goes around and has, hurt a lot of women along the way and hurt a lot of people. So that's the gist of the film, right?
Okay.
But I listened to the song and I was like, wow, this is a really good song, and kind of shows off Mick Jagger's voice. Like, it's not just sort of him posturing necessarily. I think he sounds great here. And then I also thought it was appropriate, Samer, because you host a podcast called Super Awesome You, and you're talking all about habits right now. And I was like, well, this hits exactly that. So if you're not, first of all, this is a great song. But second, I mean, it's a great segue to kind of say, hey, everybody should go listen to Super Awesome You and learn a little bit about habits, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just featured the song "Breaking the Habit" by Linkin Park, and I feel like "Old Habits Die Hard" is also going to be an appropriate one to do as part 2 of 3 on my little mini series on habits. But yeah, you're right. Like, this song grew on me. Like, the first time I heard it, I was like, I don't know, I'm not really into it. And then I listened to it again, and I was like, okay, all right. And I listened to it a third time, and really, yeah, started to enjoy it. So it did have that effect. And I think a big part of that is just Mick Jagger's voice for me, because he's just got such a unique, interesting voice. And I've always loved the Rolling Stones. So I think that was like a big part of it. But I had not heard the movie either. And in fact, I immediately got it confused with Alf, the character from the 90s sitcom. I was like, Alf had a movie? Oh, that's great. But then I was like, right, no, Alfie.
It was a super serious version of the sitcom Alf. So they needed Mick Jagger to write a serious song about it. Yeah.
Man, the 90s sitcoms are just something special.
No, Alf was from the late 80s.
Was
Yeah.
it really?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
I guess I
Yeah.
was watching it in the 90s.
Yeah, you
That's
might
why
have been
I
watching in the 90s. But
got
yeah,
it.
Alf was a yeah, I mean he had the habit of always trying to eat the cat of the family that he lived with, right?
Right.
So that was an old
That's
habit that died hard. That's why Mick Jagger wrote this song. He was
that
like,
makes sense. It's a
yeah, he's
good
like, why
tie-in.
is everyone laughing at Alf? This is serious, okay?
Don't eat the cat. Come
Don't
on.
eat the cat. Oh man. Okay. Well, yeah, good. Glad you eventually enjoyed this one and thought it was about Alf. This is perfect. All right. So speaking of okay, this is kind of an all-timer, this next one. And speaking of animals, that's a good segue for this next one. It is Kiss from a Rose. It's by Seal.
Yes, I like that segue. um, so yeah, I mean, this was my top of mind pick whenever we were, doing this mix. This was actually single 94, but then re-released in 95 on the Batman Forever soundtrack. And that is when it just kind of like blew up and became so popular and went on to like win Grammys and a ton of awards and still to this day gets played and lauded for like what a fantastic song this is. It's probably Seal's biggest hit, no doubt. Um, I don't know, like I can't name many other Seal songs. I can play this one over and over. Also great for karaoke. It's like a crowd pleaser for karaoke. Like everyone's gonna get really into it because he really does in the song. But yeah, I love like the medieval instrumentation in this one too. Like that's really unique. Seal's voice is amazing. I also think this has one of the all-time like m- probably misheard lines where he's singing "A light hits the gloom on the gray," but I always heard of it as "on the grave," and I think he did finally say it was on the grave, but for a long time he was just like, "No, I'm not going to clarify." It's like, come on, man, you're singing the song. Please, why wouldn't you tell us?
Well, and it kind of has like somewhat esoteric lyrics, right? So if
Yes,
you're hearing grave and you're thinking one thing, I think it would help to get a little clarity, Seal, you know?
right, yeah, come on, that's all we want. That's all we want. But
Yeah, Seal's other
yeah,
hit, Crazy, right? Like that's probably the other big
mm,
song he's had, I think,
yes,
besides
yes.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was really interesting reading about this is that he was originally like totally embarrassed by this song and then basically like played it for someone who thought like, oh, this is actually pretty great and convinced him to release it. So, put this one in a different category that we kind of keep track of artists who kind of throw something together like, oh no, that song sucks. And then it ends up being just this amazing thing. Like Smells Like Teen Spirit wasn't supposed to be like the lead single. Like that was supposed to just be like the throwaway song on the album, and now it's like a genre defining,
Yeah.
music altering song. So incredible.
So you're saying Seal and Nirvana have a lot more in common than we think?
I mean, yeah, they
Yeah,
do. Yeah,
that makes
we can do a
sense.
whole podcast about that.
Um, this was from the movie Batman and Robin, which was the first movie and only movie with Val Kilmer as Batman. And then Jim Carrey starred in this one as the Riddler. And this was when Jim Carrey was like red hot, like did like Ace
Right.
Ventura and just was, yeah, he was in everything for a while there. So, not a great movie overall.
No.
Like Jim Carrey's
No.
performance is pretty good and kind of fits the sort of Tim Burton like stylized, atmosphere there. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't love the Tim Burton produced series of Batman films. Like so, or I think we're all thankful Christopher Nolan got a hold of the series eventually.
Yes.
But yeah, this is one where I think people know the song, but probably the movie was not as memorable as the
I
song
agree.
was.
Yeah, this is probably a unique category where the song's bigger than the movie for sure.
That could be its own mix, probably.
Right. All right. Let's move on to track number 3, your next pick, A Mighty Wind by the Folksmen.
Yeah, this is the Folksmen, Mitch and Mickey, and the New Main Street Singers. Those are all fictional folk bands. The movie A Mighty Wind is a Christopher Guest documentary, mockumentary, if you will. It's about the
And he did like
60s. What's that? Go ahead.
sorry, he did Best in Show, right? That's why I know that
Yes,
name.
that's right. Christopher
Okay.
Guest. Yeah, he did Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, Yeah,
So
there's
good.
a whole series of movies that he's done, and they all kind of take on a certain genre. That they're almost entirely improvised, these movies, and they have a lot of the same actors. They're hilarious, and this one is
Yes.
just amazing. But this one was unique amongst his films because they produced a whole album. So there's a whole album of like fictional songs from these bands that never existed that are sung by these actors, and this is kind of the main theme from A Mighty Wind, where all of these bands come together to sing this song. And if you're familiar with like 60s folk music, the lyrics here are just brilliant because they just hit upon every theme of like, there's this perfect idyllic world if we would all just come together, and the blind will see and the deaf will hear. And the funny thing here is like they talk at the end, the mighty wind they refer to as this mighty wind of change, right? And they
Right.
keep saying it's blowing here, it's blowing there, and of course because it's Christopher Guest, you get at the very end the twist of it's blowing peace and freedom, it's blowing you and me.
that, that line killed me. That was the one I was going to bring up. It's so good. Yeah, like the little clever like innuendo there right at the end, and because also I think like he's so smart to kind of make fun of musicals, because often musicals will have lines in there that you do kind of like tilt your head at, especially like older ones where like maybe it doesn't translate as well 50 years later.
Right, right.
And you're just like, wait, what are you singing about? So I think that was really clever in that regard.
Yeah, the whole movie too, they're so earnest about what they do and what they sing.
Right.
That's what I love about his movies, is that there's never any overt jokes, right?
Right.
It's
Yes.
really just these people playing over the top characters that is funny, but it's because they take themselves so seriously that's where the humor is.
I mean, seriously, kudos to the actors, because I don't know how they can get through a scene without just dying, like cracking up. They're so funny, and you're right. It's like so much deadpan. Like the delivery is just it's earnest, like you said. Yeah, it's so honest and and real. But then you're like, these characters are ridiculous, and it's so much fun. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, track 4, you went with Skyfall by Adele.
Yeah, I had to pick a Bond song, and it seems that you did you had a similar thought later on this mix, which is great. So the two songs are very different from one another. Bond tracks have changed over time. Same with Batman films. They went from kind of being like cutesy in some ways. I think you could argue looking back at them, to very dark and very serious. So
Hmm.
Skyfall is definitely in that dark and serious kind of Daniel Craig is a broken man theme and everything. And this is just one of my favorite that came out recently. It was either this or the Billie Eilish one, which is also excellent. I think her voice also does an amazing job for like a Bond film. But I mean, Adele is unbelievable. Like she has one of the greatest voice of this current generation of singers, I'd say. And I think also it's like it is incredible when you think about how big of a crossover hit this one is. Like to make a song for opening credits for a movie is kind of a dated idea, but obviously Bond has just turned that as part of the franchise. It's like you're going to get a Bond film, but you're also going to get this like massive, massive like successful song that comes out of it. And so, it is incredible. And she won Best Original Song at Golden Globes, at Academy Awards, and the Best Song Written for Visual Media at the Grammy. So kudos to Adele. She knocked it out of the park.
Well, and she's perfect for the Bond song, right? So
Hmm.
if you're not, one who has sat down and watched a lot of James Bond movies, the opening sequence, they play the entire song as they're
Yes.
rolling through the credits. And so it was always a big deal. I remember when, like, not only the James Bond movie coming out, but like you said, like the song that comes with it. So it was always kind of this honor when a band would kind of get chosen for a Bond song. And so, yeah, Adele had this one. And, her voice is incredible, but also just the orchestral background, taking you through this sort of bringing the emotion, bringing that much more emotion to her voice. So, yeah, this was, I think, a perfect fit. Of course, Adele was going to do a Bond song at some point.
Yes.
So I never saw Skyfall, the movie, though. Did you see it, the movie?
I did several times. It's probably his best one, Daniel Craig's best Bond
Okay.
film.
I
It's
have
up,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch that one because I've heard it was good.
It was really good. Yeah, I'd rank that one either number 1 or number 2 with Casino Royale, and
Yeah.
then the others all kind of fall behind back there somewhere. But this one is excellent. All right, track number 5, a movie that I've heard a lot about, but I have yet to see, although I feel like I should. So the song is "The Great Beyond" by REM, and the movie, of course, is "Man on the Moon."
Yeah, so that was about comedian Andy Kaufman, and he's played by Jim Carrey in that one. Really, I think if you want to see something, go and watch the documentary. I think it's called "When Jim Met Andy," and it's about the filming of this movie. And when they filmed this movie, Jim Carrey like became Andy Kaufman and then
Right,
refused to break character until they were done filming. And in this documentary, they just talk about how he just drove everyone crazy by taking
yeah,
on the persona of Andy Kaufman. Because if you're not familiar with Andy Kaufman, before the word viral was a thing, he became very popular for these like public kind of stunts and things where he was kind of joking, but no one else was in on the joke.
right, yeah,
And he put himself in these very dangerous situations. So similar to Christopher Guest, stuff that's not just overtly funny and like kind of pratfallish, right? But it was more just like, is this person? It's almost like an early version of Borat, right? Where it's like,
right,
is this a
yeah.
real thing or not? Right? You can't quite figure it out. And so the movie kind of depicts his lifetime, but then yeah, Jim Carrey sort of famously took this on and was like, I'm going to become him. So he's like pulling pranks and stuff on the set, and really everyone was just on their last nerve by the time it was done filming.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like the song too. I love the line "pushing an elephant up the stairs." To me, that was like the line that really stuck out of everything. And I think that that's just a great description sometimes of something we need to do. And I bet the cast and film crew felt that way about working with Jim Carrey on this set. It's like pushing an elephant up the stairs. Like he was just very difficult to work with at times while he embodied this role. So
Well, and you're right. The lyrics talk about I'm bending spoons, I'm breaking through. Like it's all about kind of doing the impossible a little bit, which is what
yeah,
Andy Kaufman kind of did because he was this very one of a kind, and I'd say still to this day, probably Sacha Baron Cohen might be the closest thing we've gotten to him, but he was just this very one of a kind comedian. Again, in a time with no social media, so it's like, how do you
right.
get people sort of on board with these things that you're doing? So yeah, the song is kind of perfect for who he was. All right, track 6. We're going to take a very hard left turn here. It is "Earned It" by The Weeknd. It's from 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, this is also a song that came to mind for me in terms of just, like, massive hits from a film series, that just continue to get played today regardless of whether or not, like, I bet at some point someone's not gonna know that this is from that movie. I think we all know, because it's like we're still part of that generation, but I imagine in a long time it'll still get played because it is an amazing R&B track, but the movie will become less important that, that's where it kinda came from. But yeah, I mean, I think this really showcases The Weeknd's, I mean, his talent and especially his talent for R&B singing. He had such a smooth voice for it, and I think instrumentally, like this is like a kind of sexiness in a song. Like I hate to put it that way, but like I think it just really does such a good job of that. The mood fits, like I think it's perfect for this film, obviously, which is all about Christian Grey and like that whole thing. I ended up actually reading all 3 books at the time because everyone was so like nuts about it that I was like, I'm curious. Let me try the first one. And I ended up reading all 3. They were they were interesting books, certainly entertaining. They offered at least entertainment value, but yeah, I just think the song is so good and really shows like The Weeknd's power at R&B.
Yeah, similar to "Kiss from a Rose," this is a song I'd heard, but like didn't know it was associated with a movie. I was
Oh,
just like,
nice. Okay.
yeah, I was like, oh, this is just an R&B song, right? And then I was like, oh, okay, it's from 50 Shades of Grey. Never saw the movie, did not read the books. My wife had read the books. As she described it, they kind of just got progressively worse as you read through the
Yes.
books. So
Accurate.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And I
We're
also
gonna get some.
remember somewhat famously the actors in 50 Shades of Grey kind of famously hated each other.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
as they filmed these. So yeah, so I'm glad we got something positive out of this movie at the
Yes.
very because I really like this song, and I was like, "What's this from?" And I was like, "Oh, 50 Shades of Grey, huh? Never saw that one." But yeah, I'm glad we got a great track out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We had to have Bruce on here. I mean, he's done everything. So, of course, he's done a song for a movie. And it is The Wrestler by Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, from the movie The Wrestler. He's written three songs specifically for movies. Streets of Philadelphia from the movie Philadelphia
Right.
won him an Oscar. Dead Man Walking, again from a movie of the same name. That one he was nominated for an Oscar but lost. This one he won a Golden Globe for, but then was not even nominated for an Oscar, which was kind of a surprise move.
Rude.
It is rude. It is. He's the boss. Okay. Um, yeah, if you're not familiar with the movie, it stars Mickey Rourke as an aging professional wrestler and kind of shows all the struggles that come with that profession. I believe Mickey Rourke was nominated as a result of his performance in this movie. But the song depicts this, just very sad scenarios where these, things they're trying to get a smile out of this person, even though they are this very broken person, right? And
Hmm.
it's just perfect. I grew up watching a lot of professional wrestling, and as a lot of the kind of stars I watched growing up have aged, and then this movie came out, I mean, it was like the perfect intersection because it really is exactly like that. Like these guys sacrifice kind of their lives and their bodies going from town to town, and they're just trying to entertain because that's what professional wrestling is.
Right.
But they end up with just all sorts of physical problems and sometimes family problems, and so Bruce does a great job in this song of just capturing that, even if you're not necessarily a professional wrestling fan.
Yeah, I didn't really know a lot of that context, but you're absolutely right. Like that song does a really good job at it. And he sings it perfectly well as he always does. The other thing that really made me amazed is that he just like wrote this after a concert at Giant Stadium and gave it to them for free. Like he just kind of like whipped this together on his guitar and was like, "Yeah, y'all can have this one for free." I just think like what a career. What
Hey, Sammer, today on your lunch break, go ahead and write me a song, okay? You just knock that out.
You got it. It's
Yeah.
gonna be terrible, but I will write it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's keep this emotional train going because I feel like this stretch of songs a little emotional. "See You Again" by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth.
Yeah, I mean, I think we recently brought back up. I mentioned songs from Fast and Furious and how like they're all so good and high energy, and then we remembered that like this song exists, so I had to put this song on here because this honestly might be one of the saddest songs like ever. Period. And then certainly much sadder given the context of the death of Paul Walker on from the Fast and Furious film. Yeah, I believe, like, the opening lines were actually written from the perspective of Vin Diesel, as if he tried to imagine what would Vin Diesel write a text to Paul Walker, like, what would be written in that text message or something like that, and so, he was like, "Oh, what a long day it's been, but I'll tell you all about it when I see you again." This kind of really, like, warm way of thinking, like, "Yeah, you're gone, but I'm gonna see you again," and, speaking that this isn't, like, the last time that they'll ever speak, which is really sweet. But yeah, this song is really good. I think it's really powerful. And it was made for the Fast and Furious films, which like you wouldn't expect such an emotional song to come out of such ridiculous films that just keep getting more and more ridiculous as they go on. So yeah, great song.
Agreed. Yeah, great song. Like we joke a lot on this show about the Fast and Furious movies. You're right; they just get ridiculous. But this is a really poignant moment in Furious 7 where they have the cars kind of pull up to each other and then kind of go in different directions while this song is playing. And yeah, I mean, honestly, if you've ever lost a friend, like this song kind of hits you. It,
Yes,
like
yeah.
it is a great song for that, even if you're not into the Fast and Furious movies. So I was like, yeah, this. I mean, I feel like this has to be on here.
I agree. Yeah, definitely had to put this on here. All right, track 9, the other Bond film song. Very different vibe from Skyfall and Billie Eilish's Bond songs. This is Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah, I'm glad you had the same thought of like a James Bond song because I immediately, my mind went to that. But I had like five choices. I was going through, I thought about Skyfall. I thought about Live and Let Die. Or like, obviously, I picked that one. View to a Kill is a Duran Duran song from the 80s, which sounds very 80s like. But yeah, I picked this one because it was, I guess, a big deal when Paul McCartney agreed to do a Bond song, right? Like
Right,
they
I could
got a
see that.
Beatle. He did the song and it's great. And when you think about, a Bond movie, you can absolutely see sort of an action sequence going along with all the musical changes in this one. And it's a great song just on its own. Guns N' Roses redid it later. But yeah, I mean, this was just, I don't know. This was the one I ultimately landed on, but definitely could have picked Skyfall or any number of a handful of other songs for, my Bond film pick.
Yeah, I just was, like, so kind of amazed at how different of a vibe it is. So many years have gone between this one. This was the first Roger Moore film, and then, there have been many Bonds in between. And what I thought also was really interesting is that they recorded this one with, like, a live orchestra in a very large room, and I think that actually adds to the musical quality of it because it has, like, a frantic energy, and there are a lot of shifts, and you can kinda get that feel that they're, like, literally in a huge room with a large orchestra. They're like, "All right, let's do this." I hit record. Everyone to your places. It has that energy to it, and I think that's another reason why it's, like, such a popular song, for a Bond film and one that, kinda has long-standing history.
Okay, we can't talk about movies from film without including something from an animated film. So you hit that mark here with "You've Got a Friend in Me" by Randy Newman.
Yeah, I mean, also because we recently featured Randy Newman on a on a recent episode, and so Randy Newman was top of mind, and obviously this is, for me at least, like, the number one Randy Newman song, especially just growing up watching the Toy Story films, which have been around for, like, over 20 years at this point. I think maybe even 25 years or something ridiculous like that, which is wild because, having that be introduced in our lifetime, it's like, "Oh, yeah, didn't that just come out?" It's like, "Nope, they're up to, like, Toy Story 17." Andy is now the old man from Up. That's the whole that's the whole universe they've created. Um, but yes, I think this is such a cute song, and other than the fact it's made for this film, I think on its own it is a beautiful song about friendship, and I think the song itself just sounds like friendship. Like, it's got this little whimsy to it, and it just sounds really nice. It's got very cute lyrics, and I think it's one that, if you've got a good friend, you can kinda reminisce to, all the fun you've had together with this person while listening to this song.
Yeah, similar to "See You Again," right? It's one of these songs where it's like you associate it with the movie and maybe it lessens it a little bit, right? But when you really listen to it, it's just great. And you're right, it's just a perfect song about friendship. Yeah, I mean, you talk about how long these movies have been around. I mean, I don't even know if I saw Toy Story before I had kids, just because I was just like a single adult when it came out
Sure,
and did
yeah.
not get around to see it. And then years later, I took my kids to see Toy Story 4 and we were kicked out of the movie theater. So there, I don't know, I guess it comes full circle, maybe.
That's awesome. You're not allowed to throw things at the screen, Matt. That's why they kicked you out, and your kids had to suffer. You gotta learn.
I wasn't happy with some of the choices the actors made. That's all. That's all I'll say. Okay.
All right, well, listen, I don't wanna fight about this any longer, which takes us to track number 11, just the all-time, and may she rest in peace, Tina Turner, the song "I Don't Wanna Fight."
Yeah, so this was an original song she wrote for the movie treatment of her life called What's Love Got to Do with It, which came out, I think, in the early 90s, which is wild to think that it was like 30 years prior to her passing. There was this biopic done about her life. And if you're not familiar with her story, I mean, she was originally a duo with her then husband, Ike Turner, and sort of shot up to fame. But, they had this awful relationship where Ike Turner was abusing her. And that's what the movie kind of takes you through, is their relationship. And then she walks away from him at the end, and obviously her career continues to soar while his kind of falls by the wayside. And it's funny because at the end, he's very much like, you're nothing without me. They talk about having this sort of complicated divorce, but she's like, you can take everything. I just want my name. And she
Mm-hmm.
walks away and just sort of rebuilds her career from there, and it just takes off. So it's actually, I think it's a great movie. Um, and this song is just perfect for sort of exhibiting this broken relationship, and how she's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. Like, on top of the fact that she's the one getting abused, but it's also just, she expresses this kind of weariness, but also how, there used to be some positive things in this relationship, but now it's like, nope, I'm done with this. Like, all it is just negativity and fighting.
Yeah, no, her story really is incredible, and what she went on to do and make such an enormous name for herself. The other thing that made me happy about listening to this song again is it reminded me that this was also on my on my parents' like mix
Oh,
that they would listen to all the time.
yes,
So
we
you
got a
just got another
bingo.
one.
We got a
Yeah,
bingo.
you got a bingo. Longtime listeners will know that there, ever since the start of the show, there have been songs that appear that remind me of being in the car with my parents, or they had like this CD or mixtapes that they would listen to on repeat all the time. So this was on there. So we got another one. It's always exciting when that happens.
Nice, nice. All right, let's bring this one home. Track 12, your last pick, Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, I think this was, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this song on a previous mix. It may have been something from the 60s, like a 60s mixtape, but I had to include it again. It's from the film The Graduate, which is also like a top 10 movie for me. I absolutely love Dustin Hoffman in that film. And I just like the weirdness of the movie. It's great. But, the thing that really makes me laugh about this song is how it came to be like the song for The Graduate. The creators of the movie were looking for, a song to go along with it, and they loved Simon and Garfunkel's music. And they were like, "Hey, can you write us a song?" And I'm pretty sure it was that Simon and Garfunkel were like, "Well, we were going to write the song Mrs. Roosevelt about Eleanor Roosevelt, but we could literally just swap out Roosevelt for Robinson because it's the exact same number of syllables and it works in the song." And so they're like, "Great, we're done. Here's your song." Similar to kind of, it's almost in the same category as like Bruce just like, knocking a song out 30 minutes after
Right.
finishing a concert. They're just kind of like, yeah, whatever, just, find and replace Roosevelt with Robinson. Let's call it a day.
It's like in modern times, it would be like as if an assignment was due today. And it's like,
Yes.
guys, remember we asked you to write that song? Yeah, yeah, no, we got it. We got it. I'll just send it over right now. It's on my home computer. Let me get back home. Yeah. Yeah, here you go, guys. Yeah, just
Oh my God.
quick find and replace. Okay. Just drop in Robinson. All right, there you go, guys. Yep, we're good. Yep. Yeah, these lyrics
So
don't
awesome.
fit, but I love that you titled it Mrs. Robinson. This is great.
Right. Yeah. I know, because like, the movies is like about Dustin Hoffman's character who's like young, just out of college, who starts dating this older woman and then ends up dating and trying to marry his daughter, or sorry, her daughter, which is very strange and bizarre. And it's like, again, just an interesting film. But she's like a bored kind of socialite. And this, I feel like, again, is pretty clearly Mrs. Roosevelt in her life. Like, I think especially verse 3, sitting on a sofa on a Sunday afternoon, going to the candidates debate, laugh about or shout about it when you've got to choose. It's like, I didn't imagine that this woman in the movie is going to any candidates debate. But, it's fine. It works.
It's never quite matched up. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
Yeah.
interestingly, it was not eligible for the Oscars the year it was released. And part of it is because I think it was not purely written for it was like this technicality. It was not purely written for the movie. It was like a
Oh,
song
interesting.
released with the movie or something like that. But I don't know. For some reason, that relationship ended up making it like not eligible to win an Oscar, because I was certain this would have won the Oscar, but
Right.
alas. All right. Well, there you have it. It's another super awesome mix for your collection. This time, music from movies that some of which you may have seen, some of which you just heard of, but probably worth checking out. And go to the movies this summer, right? Like you can go to the movies again. So check out some of the blockbusters. I think there's a lot of fun movies coming out. And while you're maybe thinking about whether they're good or bad, go ahead and give us a 5-star review while you're listening to the show here. Sammer and I will get to work on our next mix. So for Sammer, this is Matt, and we'll see you next time. Super Awesome Mix is brought to you by DLM. Make shopping easy with DLM, the one-stop shop for all your casual clothing needs. Shop DLMsupplyco.com and enter the promo code AWESOME at checkout to save 15% off your first purchase. That's DLMsupplyco.com.